guys, Horror Man back for another review. So today we're going to go ahead and take a look at the New York Comic Con exclusive Wolverine 112 collective figure. Now this is basically modeled after the tiger stripe or blue and yellow costume that Wolverine wore in the comics and even in the cartoon. Very popular design for this character. Now this is a Mezco New York Comic Con exclusive, meaning you can either buy it at the show or you had the opportunity to pre-order it before the actual show started. Now if you did pre-order it, you basically wouldn't pick it up, they would just mail it to your house after the actual show. So these have started shipping, so if anybody's ordered them, they are shipping, so you probably should receive it right before Christmas. So just taking a look at the box here, it does say 112 Collective Pose Play Display at the top left. You have this really cool Mezco exclusive label on the top right, which is a little like sticker. You have the X-Men logo in the middle. It says Wolverine, and then you have the Marvel logo. Turn to the side, you see it says Wolverine with the logo, Mezco Toys, by collectors, for collectors. On the back you have this really cool artwork of Wolverine just kind of standing here. And it's nice and shadowed, so you really don't see his face or anything. On the side you get the same thing as was on the other side. On the bottom you just get some of the credits for Mezco, ages 18 and up, not for children, and just a couple other logos. And then on the top you just see it says 112 Collective, and again, Pose Play Display. So this box doesn't feature the slip cover that we've seen with a lot of them. It's pretty simple. It's just an outer box, and it's very stuffed. You can see it's kind of like popping open. It's really it's packed. So if you just open this up, you can see the plastic tray is inside, and then you could just pull this right out. Okay, so once you get the tray outside of the box, you basically have two different sections here. The actual top piece will contain the figure and all the accessories, and then the bottom piece you could just pull out just like this, and then you'll actually have the stand and the little display piece. So the actual stand is just got your standard X-Men logo on the front. Then there's a little peg just in case you just want to peg the foot into the stand and just leave it at that. But if you want to do some different like flight type poses and things like that, you just go ahead and flip the reverse of the stand over, and you're going to want to poke out that little black piece here for the foot. And then you could reverse the stand, plug this in, and then the actual arm of this stand has articulation on it. You can rotate it. You could do all different motions and actions with it. So just in case you want to do like a flight pose as opposed to just kind of standing there, you have that option with this display stand, and I think the stand is actually really nice on here. Alright, now these figures are really meant to just be, immediately taken out of the box and displayed. There's no tape on this outer packaging, which you might have noticed. So when you take this out, you want to be really careful because there's nothing basically in with twisty ties or anything like that, so the accessories will kind of fall all over the place. So once you just remove the plastic, you could just take the figure right out. Okay, so here is the figure outside of the packaging, and just at first glance I think he looks excellent. This is definitely a classic design for Wolverine, and it's definitely a figure that I've been really looking forward to for Mezco to put out. I was just kind of waiting for him to announce a blue and yellow costume Wolverine. So this is definitely a real treat for Wolverine fans, especially if you're a fan of the 90s comics and things like that. So let's go ahead and get a nice close-up of the head sculpts. Okay, so for the first head sculpt that you get, which is the one that he's wearing inside of the box, this is basically like a neutral expression, so it doesn't really have an angry or a happy face or anything like that. But yeah, it looks pretty good. I like the black. I think they've done a great job with that. It's very crisp, and you don't see any bleeding or anything with the paint. So yeah, I think that came out very nicely. We got the white eyes, and again, just a neutral expression with him. So yeah, pretty cool looking head sculpt. Alright, so if you want to interchange the head sculpt, it's fairly easy. You just have to tug on the head just a little bit. Doesn't really take a lot of pressure to get that off. And then you can see the peg on the other underside of the head, and then you just pop it right on there. And this is going to be a head sculpt that I think most people will display their Wolverine with. And this is the more angry head sculpt. This is going to be the one you're going to use for those action poses or fighting poses. Very menacing looking. I think they've done a really good job here. The teeth are really nicely done, and the eyes, again, just got those white eyes. Now if you look at the actual cow, I think it is a little bit different in terms of sculpt, just because he's angrier. You can see his eyebrows have a little bit more sculpting around there, so it's kind of cool that they kind of show the expression through the mask. And then of course you get those little you know, lines and just wrinkles and stuff, just to kind of show the anger a little bit more. And then both of the head sculpts don't really have much of like a stubble or anything like that, but he does have a little bit darker, I guess, skin on his face. It's not like real pale, but yeah, I don't see like any beard or anything coming through there. But overall, I think the head sculpt looks really good. Alright, and here's the third and final head sculpt, and this is the Unmasked Logan head sculpt. And I think this looks really good. It's not perfect, but I could definitely see what they're going for, and I really like it. It definitely reminds me of that creepier Logan from like the, you know, like the 90s and those comics, and he's got the fangs going. I just think he looks really menacing. You can see he's got the sideburns nice and thick, got the hairdo kind of falling in the front here, and the best part, they got these sides right, how it's kind of like going straight up on the right and left sides. And the back of the head sculpt, you can see how the hair is flared even more. So yeah, all around, this is a really good job on this sculpt. I absolutely love this head sculpt. Now, I do wish they would have gave a little piece for like the mask to look like it's kind of falling down in the back. If that was a fabric piece or a sculpted piece, I think that would have been a nice touch to add on to this. But as it is, I think they've done a really good job. And if you kind of look at the chin on the different ones, I feel like the like more stubble or like beard or 5 o'clock shadow is more noticeable on the unmasked head. I really don't see it like enough with the masked head sculpts. So yeah, and it's hard to pick it up on the camera, but there definitely is more of a shadow on this unmasked head sculpt. Alright, and just taking a closer look at some of the details in the rest of the body. If you look, you have the shoulder pads on here, which are done with a harder plastic, and these do have articulation to them. You can see he's got the cloth outfit, just like all the other 112 figures for the most part. The tiger stripes are on here, you can see them on the top, and then you can see them on the sides. And then one thing I really love about this is that they actually did you know, include the arm hair on here. So it's not just painted, there is a little bit of like a light sculpt on here, but the fact that they actually painted those hairy arms really, I think, makes this figure so much more of a Logan Wolverine figure. It's something that Marvel Legends just doesn't do, at least Hasbro doesn't do, and you know, I'm glad to see that Mezco's done it here. And just looking at the belt, you can see the X symbol on the buckle, and then he's got these different pouches on here. So pretty nicely detailed, and of course it is a separate piece, but it doesn't appear to move, so it must be you know, glued down or something. The actual gloves have these different like straps around them. There's a couple little pouches on here. You can see where the blades would come out of the gloves. The fist, you can see there's like a little bit of a padding on the palm side. And then of course he's got those standard shorts that we've seen with that classic outfit. And then if you look at the boots, they're a bit of a redesign, which is something you see a lot on these Mezco figures. They kind of like give it a modernized look. So these boots basically look more like combat boots, but it looks like there's an extra bit of like, it looks like a metal plate that's basically on the top of it. And then it's held down with these like different buckles. Now none of this is removable, it's all sculpted, but I think it's really cool how they designed this. It kind of gives a more realistic look to his boots. And then on the bottom you can see the different tread on here. And then there is little seams that kind of go into the front, which I think is really nice. Kind of gives it more of a modern fabric look. And then they got the seams in the fronts of the pants. But the actual sewing parts that they've kind of hidden are in between, in the underside of the leg here and then on the back. So you won't see those seams as much, but you will just see these like little designs that they put on here. And if you look close, you can see like the abs through the clothes and the chest. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think this figure looks excellent. All right, so just looking over the articulation here, Wolverine can look down pretty far, and then he can look up pretty good. You can see how the neck and the head actually have articulation, and then you could you can pivot his head pretty good to the left and to the right. So yeah, he's got a really good range of motion in that head sculpt. We kind of already touched on this, but these shoulder pads do have articulation, so it shouldn't hinder the movement in the arms, which it doesn't. So you can go out about that far. He can go down about that far, and then he can also move the arm up, which the shoulder pad goes with the arm, and then the shoulder pads themselves can also be removed, but you do have that little like peg that kind of sits open, so it doesn't look quite that great. And then the elbows have the double hinge, so you can do a good muscle flex here. And then the actual gauntlet doesn't turn, but the wrist does have articulation here. And then you can kind of pivot the wrist pretty good. So pretty good range on the arms. Now as far as the torso, he does have some articulation here. And then he also has an ab crunch. And he can turn at the waist. Not so much. You really can't turn at the waist, but he does move a decent amount, not too much in the waist though. And then as far as the legs, you can get it out about that far. And he does have the double hinge on the knee, so he can bend his knees pretty good. He can rotate the boot a little bit, and then you can go up and down a little bit with the ankle. And then he also has a bit of an ankle pivot. And then he could do a decent split as well. And then this far back with the leg. So hopefully I covered everything. There's also a bicep swivel right here. So yeah, decent amount of articulation, especially for a figure that was wearing clothes. Alright, and you do get a few extra sets of hands for Wolverine. The first set of hands is more of like an open hand, and you get 2 of those. And then the second set of hands is more for gripping. They're basically the same set that you would get for the X-Force or the brown costume Wolverine. Both of those come with a sword. Unfortunately, this one does not, but you do have the hands to hold the sword in case, I guess, you buy the other ones, or if you just want to put something else in his hand. And then the final set of hands is going to be the bladed hands. Now these are definitely going to be the more popular hands that people will probably display their Wolverine with. The blades are very cleanly done. They do have some flex to them, so they're not going to immediately break, but they're not as bendy and flexible as I would hope. So you may want to still be careful, when using these, and especially when you're going to put them into Wolverine's arms. But yeah, you do get, of course, a set of the bladed hand. All right, and if you want to interchange the hand, all you have to do is just grab the hand here and just pop it off as best you can. There's just a little hole on the underside and then this little peg on the arm. And then you could just peg in the new hand that you want to display him with. And it fits pretty good on here. Alright, so here he is with both of the bladed hands. And I think this looks really cool. It is a little tough to get the right position, I guess, with these. You have to get used to the fact that these hands pop off a little easier than you might want. And also, when you turn the arm, those shoulder pads do go to the back. So you might have to work this figure to get the best pose. But overall, I think he looks really cool. Now, the one accessory you do get with Wolverine is this Logan mask, which is a character that was in one of the older Wolverine stories. I think this looks really good. The details are really nice on here. It really does look like a mask. It's more of that pliable material, so it's pretty soft. Now, it doesn't actually fit on Wolverine, but I've got certain characters for it to fit. I was able to get it to fit decently on a couple characters. It could work on this Deathstroke, yeah. So if you want like an armored guy just like wearing it, it kind of looks cool on like the Deathstroke from the Arkham games series, Arkham Origins. And then the one I thought was kind of funny, and it actually fits him really good, was the Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street. Kind of looks like an Asian demon Freddy, so it's kind of neat. But yeah, the mask, even though it doesn't have the straps, it will fit on a figure. You just kind of have to find the right figure. You know, if you could find one that looks like Logan, that's good. But yeah, you look for some kind of like, you know, ninja warrior type design, and I think this mask will fit. Now you also get one last thing with this Wolverine figure, which is basically the 112 Collective baggie. It just says 112 Collective, and then you could just write Wolverine on here. It's basically just a little Ziploc bag, and then you could just store all the accessories that come with him, just in case you want to like put the box away or something like that, or throw it away. But yeah, it's kind of nice that they include these, so if you do collect some different 112s, you can at least put everything nice and filed away in the bag. You really don't even have to label it because you can pretty much tell who this goes to. But yeah, nice little treat they give you this. Alright, and then here is Wolverine on the figure stand. Here he is in like a bit of a flight pose here, so you can see the stand really does hold Wolverine pretty good. Okay, so for the first comparison, here is the Mezco Wolverine next to the brown Marvel Legends Wolverine and the Old Man Logan Wolverine. Now these are both Marvel Legends again, and they are made by Hasbro. And then you can see he's a little bit taller than them. And here's Wolverine next to a couple other Marvel Legends. You have the Spider-Man, which came with the Mary Jane and the 2-pack, and then you have Deadpool. Next comparison is a bit of a cartoon comparison, in case you're planning on displaying your Wolverine with some different nostalgic cartoon characters. So you have Mumra on the left, which is made by Mattel. Skeletor is on the far right, also made by Mattel. And then you have the NECA Toys Raphael from Ninja Turtles, the 1987 cartoon. Here he is next to some different NECA toys. You have the Jason from Part 6, Jason Lives. The original Terminator from Terminator 1. Then you have Ellen Ripley. And then this figure is more 6-inch scale, whereas the NECA stuff's more 7-inch scale. So he is a little short in a collection like NECA. Okay, and here he is next to some various DC figures. You have the Mafex Dark Knight Rises 2.0 Batman figure. You have the Suicide Squad Harley Quinn made by SH Figuarts. And then you have the DC Collectibles Animated Series Batman. Alright, and for the final comparison, here is the Mezco Wolverine next to the Diamond Retro version of Wolverine. And this is basically made to look like the Mego figures from the 70s. And then if you look at him, he is a little bit smaller. This is a different scale, but you could definitely see the similarities here. And it's kind of cool to have these next to each other, because this would be like the updated version of that Mego one. So yeah, pretty cool. Alright, so that's my review of the 112 New York Comic Con Wolverine. Overall, I'm very happy with the figure. There's definitely a couple gripes, like the hands. They definitely pop off a little too easy. and the the shoulder pads definitely are very easy to knock off. But they're just minor gripes that I don't have to deal with since I'm not really playing with the figure. But to try to get it in the right pose, you might get a little aggravated with the hands popping off. So that's my biggest complaint about the figure. But for the most part, I think it's awesome. I honestly think this is one of the best, if not the best, Wolverine figure made to date. He just looks so good. The accessories are awesome. And even though he didn't come with the sword, I really love that demon mask. Now, the one real bummer about this figure is that he is just very hard to buy, especially for a good price. Yeah, if you didn't buy him online through the Mezco website, the pre-order, you probably didn't get one. Now, unfortunately, these aren't the cheapest figures to begin with. I paid about $90 after taxes and shipping. But right now in the third-party market like eBay, you're probably going to pay about $180. So if you really want this figure, you're going to probably have to pay up for it, unfortunately. But I really think this is one of the best Wolverine figures ever made, if not the best ever made. I mean, it's a great look. It's a quality figure, and if you can't afford this one or you don't want to get this one, you do have the brown costume version and the X-Force version, which are both around $80 each. So at least you can get that. But if you really like the blue and yellow costume, I highly recommend this figure. I mean, it is such a great figure. Like I said, aside from the hands popping out a little bit easy, and the shoulder pads as well, it's all around an excellent figure. Alright, so thanks for watching my review. Please subscribe. Please like the video if you liked it. Leave a comment or question if you have one. And until next time, guys, see ya.